Welcome back to the Begin Purpose podcast. In our last regular episode, we talked about living from a renewed identity. We explored the tension between the old version of yourself and the person you are becoming. We talked about how familiar discomfort can sometimes feel safer than unfamiliar freedom, and how the old identity does not always leave simply because we have clarity. We have to practice the renewed identity until it becomes believable. Today, I want to continue that conversation by talking about something that does not get enough attention when people begin pursuing purpose. We often talk about discovering purpose. We talk about naming it, finding it, hearing it, chasing it, stepping into it, and living it. Those are important conversations, but there is another part of purpose that may be even more important over the long term. You have to become someone who can carry it. That is the heart of today's episode. Becoming someone who can carry the purpose. Because purpose is not only about direction, it is also about capacity. A lot of people want a bigger life, but they have not yet built the capacity to carry one. That is not an insult, it is simply a reality. A bigger life requires a bigger inner structure. More responsibility requires more steadiness. More visibility requires more emotional maturity. More opportunity requires more discernment. More influence requires deeper character. More purpose requires more capacity. And this is where many people get frustrated. They ask God, life, themselves, or the world for clarity, and then clarity starts to come. They begin to sense direction. They begin to see possibilities. They begin to feel something waking up again. But then, the process slows down, and they assume something went wrong. Maybe they think they lost momentum. Maybe they think they are being delayed. Maybe they think the purpose is not real because it did not immediately become visible, profitable, public, or easy. But sometimes the delay is not rejection. Sometimes the delay is development. Sometimes purpose appears before capacity is ready. That is not failure. That is formation. Think about it this way. If you hand someone a weight they are not strong enough to carry, the problem is not the weight itself. The problem is capacity. They may want to carry it. They may be called to carry it. They may even be built for it eventually. But if they pick it up too soon, it may crush them, distort them, exhaust them, or teach them to resent the very thing they once prayed for. Purpose is similar. A meaningful calling can become heavy if the person has not developed the emotional, spiritual, relational, and practical strength to carry it well. Some people think purpose is supposed to make everything easier, but often, purpose makes the right things heavier, not in a destructive way, but in a meaningful way. When you begin to live with purpose, your choices matter more. Your attention matters more. Your boundaries matter more. Your character matters more. Your ability to say no matters more. Your ability to recover matters more. Your ability to keep showing up when the emotional weather changes matters more. That is why purpose cannot be separated from growth. Purpose without growth becomes pressure, and pressure without capacity becomes burnout. This is one of the reasons so many people begin something meaningful and then stop. They may have been underdeveloped in the systems, habits, support, and identity required to sustain it. They had vision, but not rhythm. They had passion, but not structure. They had desire, but not boundaries. They had inspiration, but not endurance. They had a message, but not a method. They had clarity, but not capacity. And if you have ever been there, I want to say this carefully. That does not mean you were fake. It does not mean your purpose was imagined. It does not mean you were not serious. It may simply mean the next stage of the journey is not about receiving more information. It is about becoming the kind of person who can steward what you already know. That word, steward, matters. Purpose is not only something we chase, it is something we steward. To steward something means to handle it with responsibility, care, maturity, and humility. It means we do not treat the meaningful things in our lives casually. We do not exploit them for attention. We do not rush them for validation. We do not neglect them because they became harder than expected. We learn how to carry them. This is especially important in a culture that celebrates arrival but often ignores formation. People see the book, the business, the podcast, the platform, the ministry, the career shift, the relationship, the transformation, or the visible outcome. But they rarely see the hidden capacity that had to be built underneath it. They do not see the private decisions. They do not see the early mornings, the late nights, the quiet obedience, the repeated failures, the emotional regulation, the boundary work, the unglamorous consistency, the years of learning to keep going without applause. Most meaningful purpose is carried by private capacity before it is ever seen publicly. And if you skip that private capacity, public purpose can become dangerous. Visibility without maturity can make a person fragile. Influence without humility can make a person careless. Opportunity without discernment can make a person scattered. Success without identity can make a person addicted to applause. Purpose without grounding can make a person constantly chase the next thing because they cannot rest in the thing they have been given. That is why Begin Purpose is not only about asking, "What am I here to do?" It is also about asking, "Who must I become to carry it well?" That question changes everything. Because now purpose is not only a destination, it becomes a formation process. When you ask, "Who must I become to carry this well?" you begin to look at your life differently. You stop seeing delays as only frustration. You start asking what they are developing. You stop seeing limitations as only obstacles. You start asking what they are teaching. You stop seeing discipline as punishment. You start seeing it as preparation. You stop seeing boundaries as restrictions. You start seeing them as the structure that protects what matters. A person who wants to carry purpose well has to develop several forms of capacity. The first is emotional capacity. Purpose will bring emotion with it. Excitement, fear, disappointment, hope, uncertainty, frustration, joy, pressure, and sometimes grief. If you cannot manage your emotional world, your purpose will be managed by your moods. You will start when inspired and quit when discouraged. You will overreact to criticism and become dependent on praise. You will mistake temporary fear for permanent warning. You will interpret every hard day as proof that you are not meant for the work. Emotional capacity does not mean you stop feeling. It means you stop letting every feeling become the steering wheel. That is a major part of growth. You learn to feel fear and still take the aligned step. You learn to feel discouragement and still return to the work. You learn to feel excitement without overcommitting. You learn to feel disappointment without rewriting your whole identity around one hard outcome. You learn to feel uncertainty without demanding immediate answers. Purpose requires emotional steadiness because meaningful work will not always feel meaningful while you are doing it. Sometimes it will feel ordinary. Sometimes it will feel slow. Sometimes it will feel unseen. Sometimes it will feel harder than you expected. Emotional capacity allows you to keep showing up when the feeling is not carrying you. The second is practical capacity. This is the unglamorous side of purpose that many people avoid. Practical capacity is the ability to organize your life around what matters. It includes time, routines, systems, calendars, energy management, communication, finances, planning, follow-through, and the ability to make small things repeatable. A person may have a powerful purpose, but no practical structure to support it. They want to write, but they never protect writing time. They want to serve, but they never build a sustainable rhythm. They want to lead, but they do not manage their own commitments. They want to grow, but their life remains so chaotic that growth has nowhere to land. This is not about becoming rigid. It is about becoming responsible. Purpose needs a container. Without a container, purpose leaks into good intentions. You meant to do it. You planned to start. You had the idea. You felt the burden. You saw the need. But without a structure, the purpose stayed imaginary. Practical capacity says, if this matters, where does it live in my week? That question is simple, but it is powerful. If something matters and has no place in your time, it remains a wish. If purpose matters, it needs a place. Even a small place, especially a small place. 30 minutes, one protected block, one repeated practice, one weekly rhythm. That is how purpose moves from inspiration into embodiment. The third is relational capacity. Purpose is never lived in isolation. Even if your calling feels deeply personal, it will still touch relationships. Your growth will affect people. Your boundaries will affect people. Your time will affect people. Your courage will affect people. Your visibility will affect people. Your decisions will affect people. Relational capacity is the ability to live purposefully without becoming either isolated or controlled. Some people abandon purpose because they cannot tolerate disappointing others. Some people damage relationships because they pursue purpose without humility or consideration. Both are immature forms of movement. One is controlled by people. The other disregards people. Healthy relational capacity says, I can honor people without being ruled by them. I can pursue purpose without using purpose as an excuse to become careless. I can communicate clearly. I can set boundaries. I can ask for support. I can receive correction. I can let people adjust to my growth without needing them to understand everything immediately. That kind of capacity takes time, especially if you have built your identity around being agreeable, needed, quiet, invisible, or endlessly available. Purpose may require you to change how you show up in relationships. It may require you to stop explaining everything to people who are committed to misunderstanding. It may require you to apologize when your ambition becomes impatience. It may require you to build relationships with people who can support the version of you that is becoming, not only the version of you that was familiar. The fourth is spiritual or values-based capacity. For some, this will be spiritual in a deeply faith-centered way. For others, it may be values-based language. Either way, the point is the same. Purpose needs an anchor deeper than applause, results, money, or mood. If your purpose is anchored only in results, you will panic when results are slow. If it is anchored only in applause, you will perform instead of serve. If it is anchored only in money, you may compromise what matters for what sells. If it is anchored only in emotion, you will lose direction whenever the feeling changes. A deeper anchor asks, what is true, even when this is hard? That is where values come in. That is where faith comes in. That is where conviction comes in. That is where the internal why becomes stronger than external noise. A person with spiritual or values-based capacity can keep going because they are not only chasing outcomes, they are obeying something deeper. They are living from alignment. They are practicing stewardship. They are becoming faithful with what has been placed in their hands. And this brings me to a major point. Not every season of purpose is about expansion. Some seasons are about strengthening. This can be hard for people who feel behind. When you feel like you lost time, wasted years, missed opportunities, or arrived late to your own life, you may want everything to happen quickly. You may feel impatient with slow growth because you already feel delayed. But rushing can cause you to skip the very development that makes the next season sustainable. Strengthening seasons can feel quiet. They may not produce much visible proof. They may involve learning skills, healing patterns, building systems, restoring energy, practicing consistency, or simply becoming emotionally stable enough to hold what is coming. These seasons are not wasted. They are load-bearing seasons. A load-bearing wall is not always decorative, but it keeps the structure standing. Some of the most important growth in your life may not be glamorous. It may not look impressive online. It may not give you a dramatic story to tell, but it may be the very thing that allows your purpose to stand later. Learning to rest may be load-bearing. Learning to manage your calendar may be load-bearing. Learning not to react to every criticism may be load-bearing. Learning to finish what you start may be load-bearing. Learning to ask for help may be load-bearing. Learning to stop abandoning yourself may be load-bearing. Purpose is not only built by the visible actions people admire. It is built by the invisible capacity that keeps you from collapsing under what you asked for. There is a sentence I want you to hold on to. Do not ask only for bigger doors. Ask for stronger shoulders. Because if the door opens before the shoulders are strong enough, the opportunity can become overwhelming. But if the shoulders are strengthened, the door can open and you can walk through it with humility, steadiness, and readiness. This does not mean you need to be perfect before beginning. Please do not hear that. Perfection is not the price of purpose. You do not need to have everything healed, organized, settled, polished, or fully understood before you take the next step. Beginning is part of becoming. Action is part of formation. But there is a difference between beginning imperfectly and refusing to grow while demanding a bigger assignment. You can begin where you are, but you cannot stay unwilling to mature and expect purpose to remain healthy. That is the invitation of this episode. Maybe the next step is not a bigger platform. Maybe it is a stronger rhythm. Maybe it is not more attention. Maybe it is more emotional steadiness. Maybe it is not another idea. Maybe it is finishing the last one. Maybe it is not chasing 5 opportunities. Maybe it is choosing the one that aligns. Maybe it is not waiting for confidence. Maybe it is practicing consistency until confidence has evidence. When you think about the purpose you are carrying or hoping to carry, ask yourself this: where do I need more capacity? Do I need emotional capacity because I keep quitting when discouragement appears? Do I need practical capacity because my life has no structure for what I say matters? Do I need relational capacity because I'm either too controlled by people or too careless with people? Do I need spiritual or values-based capacity because I lose my anchor whenever outcomes are slow? Do not ask these questions with shame. Ask them with honesty. The goal is not to condemn yourself. The goal is to locate the next area of growth, and then choose one small capacity-building action. If you need emotional capacity, maybe your action is pausing before responding when triggered. Maybe it is journaling the feeling instead of obeying it. Maybe it is naming the emotion without letting it become your identity. If you need practical capacity, maybe your action is putting one purpose block on your calendar this week. Maybe it is organizing one small part of your environment. Maybe it is choosing one routine that supports the person you are becoming. If you need relational capacity, maybe your action is one honest conversation, one boundary, one apology, one request for support, one decision to stop explaining yourself to people who are not actually listening. If you need spiritual or values-based capacity, maybe your action is returning to prayer, reflection, scripture, silence, journaling, or the question, what is true, even if this takes longer than I hoped? The action does not have to be dramatic. It has to be aligned. Capacity is built by repetition, not by one emotional breakthrough, not by one inspired moment, not by one grand declaration. Repetition, the small things you practice until they become strong enough to hold bigger things. As we close today, I want you to imagine the purpose in your life not as a trophy you are trying to win, but as something living you are learning to carry, something that needs care, something that needs roots, something that needs protection, something that needs your maturity as much as your passion. The question is not only, what is my purpose? The question is also, what kind of person can carry this purpose with love, discipline, humility, courage, and endurance? That question may not give you a quick answer, but it will give you a better life. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Begin Purpose podcast. In the next episode, we will continue this regular track by looking at what happens when purpose begins to mature from excitement into responsibility, and why the deeper life is often built not by chasing new beginnings, but by becoming faithful to the one already in your hands. Until then, remember this: clarity matters, but capacity carries. Do not despise the strengthening season. Do not rush the formation. Do not confuse delay with denial. You are not only finding purpose, you are becoming someone who can carry it. This is Begin Purpose, and today is a good day to build the capacity for the life you are becoming ready to live.